Evil is on board. Powerful evil.
I really loved the screenplay. It was an alien-style story set on the ocean in 1897 and with Dracula instead of the alien monster, basically.
Dracula, there's something just potent about that mythology. Everyone knows fear. Everyone has a relationship to fear in some way, and I think Dracula represents that for us.
I believe that Bram Stoker really conjured something that changed us culturally since the moment his book was published.
What the devil is that?
The theme of Dracula really stems back to the themes of the devil. And that's what this is. This is the devil on a ship.
It takes place on board this merchant ship, the Demetra. It's an environment that we don't really associate with the Dracula story, but it really is a very rich part of the Stoker novel.
What's that? Captain's log.
The movie is based on one chapter in the book, chapter 7, which is called The Captain's Log, from July 6th to essentially August 6th.
This log is a record and a warning.
It's this sort of broken, fractured account of these strange events that befell the doomed crew, but we don't really know what happened in between those moments.
Search the ship, Mr. Wojcik.
The idea in the book is that this sparse information gives rise to that sense of dread and that sense of what the hell is going to happen here.
There's more to explore. There's some gaps to fill in. So I'm glad they got in and sort of opened it up and dug deep on it.
There is something out there. Someone.
Braggy Shute, who had this idea originally and wrote the original screenplay, was fascinated by what actually happened on the ship that transported Dracula from Transylvania to England. And our partners at Amblin really loved that idea, as did we, and we certainly found our perfect director in Andre Overdahl.
I really loved all the characters on board. They felt like a real crew of people who are trying to understand what they're facing on board that ship.
God's anger has come upon this vessel. Shut up!
And they have no comprehension what it is.
Before filming commenced, we went to the sea a few hours north of Berlin.
We went to Rostock in Germany, and we were on this beautiful ship similar to the Demeter, and the lovely crew taught us how to tie various types of knots and deal with the rigging.
And we realized how hard it is and how in shape these guys must have been.
Every time I tried to pull on a rope, I would just like get lifted into the air.
Good. Okay.
And action.
We started our voyage doing the interiors of the ship in Berlin, Babelsberg. It's a fantastic studio, great space.
This used to be a lumber ship, built the old way. But now everyone wants steam ships.
We had one set, which was the mess hall, and it was on these sort of rockers that kind of went back and forth. Everyone's kind of getting seasick, but we're on the set.
We built 90% of the interior in one piece. And that really helps the movie feel like it's actually taking place in a real place. And we needed this vast space to feel like a labyrinth inside, with all nooks and crannies and dark spots and long hallways.
It's not these disjointed pieces. We had this whole set that we could make our playground, so to speak. And that scale actually really does help in creating that world and making everything feel more real.
God save you all. May he save the ship. May he save the crew.
And then we had to shift this huge company of people to the island of Malta.
Okay.
About an hour from Sicily and about 2 or 3 hours from Africa.
Day one, Malta.
And we have this infinity tank that looks out into the Mediterranean. And so they built the ship, the exterior of the ship, in this tank.
We actually built, I think, the biggest ship that has ever been in that tank in Malta.
It's 180 feet long, which is what the Demeter was scripted to be. And yeah, it's a huge achievement. It's got a massive barge underneath it, which is full of air tanks, which when we fill them with water and air at the same time, make the ship list from port to starboard to get it as close to the real thing as possible.
At first, you think it was a film about a group of ragtag sailors, and you don't know the evil that's sort of lurking beneath.
When we find Anna, the idea is that she's very much near death, and Dracula has been feeding on her, and so we had to create a more emaciated look.
We have to get off this boat, now!
We did a combination of prosthetics and shading using makeup. It took about 3 hours, so it was fun. I looked pretty horrendous.
He brought me here to feed.
My character, Petrovsky, does not like the fact that Anna is on board.
Bad luck, woman on board. Makes the skies turn. Animals go mad.
And things start to go wrong. The animals are all dead, and we're trying to figure out how it happened.
Where the hell did you come from?
And to watch that unfold, it's sheer terror.
Boo!
We're filming outdoors, we're filming at nighttime, we're filming with special effects, and we've got Dracula himself in all his friggin' glory.
I got messy, I got bloody, but it's not over yet.
The scariest character, I believe, in the whole world is Dracula. There's something, yes, scary about him, and you know, once he's on you, that's it.
Dracula, he's the perfect monster. It's really interesting that this monster that's among us only comes for us when it's dark. It's monster time when the lights go out.
Yeah, the nighttime one is the big one. He only hunts at night. Sometimes he just feeds, sometimes he kills people, sometimes he kind of plays with his prey.
He enjoys playing with us. You add that to his strength and his unhuman capabilities, it makes for a terrifying creature.
Please, no!
This scene of me becoming a vampire, being under the control of Dracula, is maybe one of the most beautiful and hardest scenes that I ever did.
Save me!
Starting with technical parts, which is putting the silicone prosthetics every morning for like 6-7 hours, and then chasing Toby through all these dark hallways.
Mr. O'Garin. The scene with O'Garin was probably one of my favorite scenes to shoot. He grabbed me, dragged me. I'm terrified, as anyone would be.
When Toby is put in danger, it's pure horror. Woody is such a wonderful actor. He works so hard, prepping every scene and really focuses.
I get bitten by Dracula. But that doesn't really kill me because I'm kind of alive. I start being a vampire, so I'm not really alive, but I'm not dead.
When Dracula goes and bites Toby, we have a custom harness and we have a line going up through the top of the set. And that was our first kind of stunt that we did with Woody on the show, and he was great with it. We had to build a big truss system to do a lot of our flying things for the creature climbing up the mast. We had special collars built for the mast system, and my stunt team was a great team of guys, and they kind of nailed it.
The devil is real. I want to kill the cursed thing.
The battle scene is definitely one of the standout scenes just because the elements in it, the water, the weather, the lightning, Dracula being there in all his glory.
Action!
We have to hurry!
The entire final battle sequence, I think, is probably one of my favorites I've ever done on a film. Getting knocked over and knocked down and water dumped on you over and over and over. You know, the water's freezing. Water's like literally in your boots.
It was a very difficult movie to shoot. We had a lot of technical issues going on at the same time. We have these enormous lighting rigs hanging from these cranes, and we have wind coming in. We had drain towers, we had stunt rigs, and we were shooting in a tank, and we're shooting 360.
I've had a couple of moments on this set here in Malta in the tanks with all the rain and the water cannons and the wind and the lightning.
We've had a lot of water dumped on us, fired at us, shot at us. And when you're strapped to the wheel of a ship, well, let me put it this way, you need your sense of humor.
I personally love building suspense. That's what I have the most fun doing because it's all about cinema. It's all about editing, pacing, sound effects, music. And Bear McCreary made some fantastic music. He created a really grand, epic piece of music for this movie, which feels like it's this journey from one side of Europe to the other.
The great part about this genre is that it pushes you outside your comfort zone.
The one emotion we don't really want to feel is fear. But when you can do that safely in a theater, for example, you're attracted to that.
You're watching them go through this experience that they have no choice but to go through. There's no way off the ship. And that evil is lurking right there.
May God have mercy on us all.
We do have some great visual effects in this film. You look at the images and it's just magic, man. It's magic.
I became involved in the film in the first day of post-production as overall visual effects supervisor. And we pushed into new territory when it comes to creating believable skin and body movement. Also, digitally created water and oceans to a level that hasn't been seen yet. And I think that's a really exciting thing. We worked with two primary vendors. One was Mr. X, they're now known as MPC in Canada, and they did a lot of the creature effects, like Dracula. And then we also worked with Rise in Germany, who did a lot of Varna, which is the shipping port at the beginning of the film, and also a lot of the stormy seas. There was a beautiful location in Malta that gave us the foundation of Varna, which is meant to be the port that the Demeter set sail from. We had about, I'd say, 1/8 of that world or that environment created practically that the actors could physically interact with and move around inside. But most of the world beyond that was created digitally. Everything from not just extensions of the buildings themselves, but also the water, the port, the other boats, birds flying in the air, the sky, everything around was created digitally, including hundreds of digital extras. The ship was a beautiful set, and what we were charged with was creating an extension to that world. We had to add sails and rigging and replace the backgrounds. We ended up replacing pretty much 90% to 95% of the water and rain and, top side of the boat. Most of the shots where the ship is out in open water are 100% digitally created. There's even little digital people walking around on the deck. Fog was a real creative challenge in this movie.
I can't see a bloody thing.
Andre always wanted the fog to feel like it may have been summoned by Dracula himself. So we went through, I think, probably over 100 variations of what that fog could look like until we arrived at something that felt naturalistic, but also slightly spooky. It was really exciting to come on board a Dracula project because it's Dracula. I mean, this is a character that's been around for a long time. We've seen, dozens of versions of him, and some that are so incredibly iconic that they're just there in the public conscience. Coming into this, it was really an interesting challenge to work on a new version of Dracula, something that's a little bit less of a man and a bit more of a creature that's behaving like a hungry beast that needs to feed. We took the original concept art of Dracula as a jumping off point, but we tried to plus it out a little bit by introducing things like a backward bat-like leg that compresses and moves in a slightly more animalistic way. And that started to make Dracula increasingly scary. And that's animated on top of the real movements of Javier, the actor that was shot on set. Javier did a great job in giving us that mode of locomotion and that feeling of personality and purpose for Dracula. Javier's makeup looked amazing on set, and it became the best possible reference for us in terms of light and texture and skin quality. So that allowed us to create a digital version that looks as real as it does. In the story, Dracula is a shapeshifter. He starts out as this sort of old man type character that looks very vulnerable and kind of weakened. But as he feeds, he starts to grow and become more powerful. And there's a version of him that has just a little bit more muscle tone and is a little bit stronger. And then ultimately, he takes his full and most powerful shape, which is a bat, where he literally has wings and can fly.
Dear God, it has wings.
You have to kind of walk this line and ask yourself, if this was real, what would it look like? If there was a man with bat wings that could fly, how would his wings fold? You know, and we would do things like look at umbrellas and how they fold, look at the wings of bats and how they fold, and figure out a sort of plausibility to things. Teeth was a creative journey as well, kind of figuring out exactly what his teeth might look like. This guy is hundreds of years old, so these teeth have been around for a while and they've seen a lot of things. So there was some practical prosthetics done that were sort of bent and snaggletooth, teeth pointing in different directions, some of them sharp, some of them dull. And we kind of went with that and pushed it as far as it could possibly go, where they A, look scary, but B, look really surprising. And Dracula's eyes can either appear like a normal eye or it can glow. And this is something that we created for the computer-generated versions of Dracula. So when lightning strikes, you might see that little glint in his eye that's a bit more animalistic than it is human.
Action.
The dead animals, those were prosthetic effects. We enhanced those to make them more gory. And in some cases, they were so wounded and so gross that you couldn't actually tell what they were. So we had to work on the dog, for instance.
Oh God, Huck!
To actually make it look like Huckleberry the dog, because Dracula had done such a number on him that he was unrecognizable.
You want to be here or here and be lifted back up out of frame.
Blood and gore is a big part of this. So we added a lot of digital blood and viscera.
It burns.
And we didn't really employ any practical fire on the film. It's all digital. There are 3 characters that burn. And, I think Andre wanted to leave room to art direct the fire and figure out what it could be. And that's something that was really fun, although gross, to design and develop. The shot I was most concerned about when I joined the film was the shot with Toby sinking. He was shot on a stage, no water, he wasn't even wet, and there was just a very simple camera movement. So we had to recreate the underwater look all around him and make him look charred and burned, and it was a very, very challenging shot that we worked on up until the last days of the production. But I'm really thrilled with the results. It's safe to say that Demetra has really pushed the boundaries, not just in terms of what we ever expected Dracula to be, but in terms of visual language and the ability to create believable moving pictures like this.
Papa, take one.
You've never seen Dracula look like he does in this film. He looks like something out of your worst nightmare, something that's crawled out of the pits of hell, something that is the conjuring of an evil mind.
lot of Dracula movies are trying to usually tell the whole story of Dracula from the book in some variation. And this is one of few movies that are really focused on just one section. So that gave us an opportunity to go into a very specific version of what he is, like a devil or a demon or something awful. And I found that aspect to be really interesting and a point of view on Dracula that we haven't really seen before.
When you tackle the genre and you try to do something different with it, that's when it becomes really interesting.
Toby! Open the door!
And that's what we're having a go at here.
Dracula takes on many forms in Demeter. Göran Lundström, our creature designer, just did an incredible job with Andre as well, just designing these forms. He's pretty damn terrifying.
I remember the first time Brad Fisher, our producer, showed me the picture of Dracula. It actually gives you chills.
We see lots of different iterations of him, which is really, really cool. We see him as a kind of a vulnerable monster initially, and we see him regain his strength by committing these acts of horrible violence.
He's a character who's like an addict. He needs his blood, and the need to regenerate himself in a way is a huge aspect to the movie. When it comes to the visualization of him, I wanted him to feel like an older man. I wanted him to feel like he is fragile, and in that way, make him, in a way, also desperate and dangerous. Javier Botet is an amazing creature performer, absolutely amazing, one of the best in the world.
Then right into him. Two camera.
And he really gives so much life to the character on set.
Javier as Dracula is spectacular. His transformation, both in terms of body and soul, is really unusual and unique.
Hello, everybody. I am Javier Botet. I'm usually working as a monster performance, but I'm an actor. I've been here in the movie working with an amazing team and enjoying and suffering very much.
This movie covers so many aspects of what a makeup artist does. Makeup effects artist is maybe a better term. So there's a lot of prosthetics. We're doing masks, we're doing fake dentures. We're also doing creature suits in foam latex, gloves, legs. And every time I've seen Javier on set in the right light, in the right atmosphere, I'm always surprised how scary he looks.
We are using my body to express all the weakness in the beginning, but then Dracula is becoming stronger.
We had fantastic special effects crew on set that were really creating this blood and working with it and making it splash around. Because of the wounds that Dracula gives is tearing them more apart.
Wow. Hello, brother.
Dracula is not just punctuating the skin and drinking the blood. It's more a desperation in his presence, in the way he attacks both animals and humans. I wanted our Dracula to feel different than the rest of the Draculas I've seen. I wanted him to be more animalistic in the design of the teeth, not just two fangs, but crooked and kind of nasty-looking teeth. It should be terrifying. It should be a mouth that should scare you, but still able to hide them, so in society, he would just look like an older guy with bad teeth.
It is scarier.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
just
no, I
has
think it's great.
ugly teeth,
Our Dracula has so many different looks in this movie. I don't know which one's more terrifying. And Javier is so good at doing creepy. He's very good in his physicality.
I have a lot of flexibility, so it allows me to make a lot of weird movement. We found something between human and unnatural, something more elegant.
It's very important to have an actor of his quality to perform these character scenes, because the other actors can then relate to it and it becomes interaction. And even for VFX, it's so helpful to have a real person do it instead of some green screen tennis ball solution.
It's one of the best parts of being able to shoot everything practical. I know it's Javier in there, but he's just so good at creating Dracula. The way he moves, the way he turns his neck, the way he takes his finger and and it was so frightening.
Dino. You.
We need this balance between something otherworldly, but something grounded still in Dracula's voice.
Please, no. Please. No.
I also wanted an aspect of animalistic sounds, like high-pitched screaming. So we had to blend between those voices in a way to try to find those tones.
I kind of avoided seeing Dracula. I wanted to keep it for when it was my turn.
Oh, my Lord.
And I really, genuinely, I really got a fright.
That's fucking scary.
And I got a fright not just in one take, like, but over and over.
Pleasure to kill you.
I never felt safe exploring a Dracula movie, that's for sure. I felt like I was stepping into big, big shoes. We're going to be measured up against some amazing classic movies, from Nosferatu to Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola movie, and many others. And we're trying to be one serious, intense horror movie.